Hello and welcome back to the Little Scale Cars YouTube channel. Today we have the Ford Escort RS2000 from Hot Wheels. This is the first new casting for 2023 that we will be reviewing, so let's go ahead and take a closer look and see if this one is worth adding to your collection. Let's get started by looking at the casting. So, before we get too into the casting, we need to understand exactly what we're looking at here, because all the bottom and the card say is it is a Ford Escort RS2000, but with a little research, I was able to dig up and find when it didn't look like Ford Escort RS2000. It is actually the Escort RS2000. It's the Mark II, and it's actually the X pack, or the Series X. So that's why it looks a little different than the standard versions of the car. So with that knowledge, let's go ahead and take a closer look at our casting. And we'll see that all of this majority of the bodywork is our metal. Our plastic pieces here are this splitter section, which is attached to the base. This grille section here is a piece of the interior, similar on the back. This piece here is the base. Exhaust piece here is the interior, and then this black bit here is also the interior. The proportions themselves are pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're all right. Nothing is distracting or anything like that. Our splitter section here, from all of the pictures I can see, is a little bit off. The front end entirely is just a little bit off looking, but it's not horrible. We do have our mirrors casted in there, so that's always a plus in my book. We also have, up front, we've got these kind of hood pins. We've got the sort of windshield wiper areas, got some casted detail. These vents are a piece of the window. Those look really good. Speaking of the windows here on the side, we do have these little vents in the window. We have our intake here on the side is actually casted in. You can barely see it. This deco doesn't do it a whole lot of favors, but it is there. And moving on to the back, we've got a little bit of casted detail here, here, and here. And then this piece has a touch of detailing as well. But other than that, it's pretty basic and pretty plain. Got a really big spoiler in the back. The real-life car, as far as I can tell, is not quite that big, but again, not a perfect proportionally wise, but it's okay. For our paint and deco, we've got pretty much a basic, almost rally-esque kind of livery going on with this blue and lighter blue on top of, on top of the white background. I'll put a picture up in the top right corner probably of the livery I'm assuming that this is trying to emulate. It's at least close enough, I would say. And I kind of like it. I think we know that there's going to be 3 different versions of this coming out, a red edition and just another recolor. And of those, this by far is my favorite one. And it's pretty good. It looks all right. I do wish, though, it's a little bit plain. I do wish we had gotten maybe a number here or something like the real-life car had. Just something in that little circle to kind of make it pop just a little more. For our details, let's start up front and make our way to the back. So, first things first, all of this grille section and headlights area doesn't have any kind of tampo work, but we do have where a Ford logo would go and where our headlights would go, as well as some stuff here in the splitter kind of casted into these plastic pieces, which look all right. Moving down the side, we have our Hot Wheels logo here, which looks good. And then we actually have our RS2000X, the X kind of indicating the fact that this is the Series X or the X pack. This is a little jumbled. It doesn't look great. This could just be mine. This is not a casting I grabbed multiple of, so I'm not 100% sure if that's just mine or if that's a common problem or that's all jumbled up. Our wheels here, we do have different wheels. They're a little bit odd looking, I think, for them to be different, but I'm sure it's probably fairly realistic that they would like this in real life or something. It doesn't look bad. The gray fits them nicely. And then on our back here, we actually do have our taillights tampoed on, and we even get a license plate as well. So that looks pretty good. As far as the level of details for a mainline, it's not too shabby. Our roll test really shouldn't be needed because this is a mainline. Obviously, it's going to roll pretty good. Moving into our pros and cons, the biggest pro of this is that it is a mainline, and therefore you can get it for about $1.25, and it's pretty easy to find. I never had any issue finding this casting at all. I'm assuming that's probably the case for most people. As far as cons go, I'm going to say it's mostly just the deco, just being a little bit hindered. It kind of hinders the details. Like I mentioned, we don't really even hardly notice that that intake is there because the deco kind of rubs over it and there's no kind of black paint there to indicate that that's where an intake would be, perhaps. And then just looking a little bit more muted up front because there's no kind of tampo work or anything there either. But not horrible, just a few things to note. For a size comparison, here we have it with some of its Ford companions, with the Escort RS2000 and the RS200. And here we have it next to some rally cars with the Audi Sport Quattro and the Lancia 037. So it's now time for my final thoughts, and overall I think I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Mostly because it's not something I was super hyped for, and I try to save my higher ratings for things I was super hyped for. That being said, though, this was still probably the highlight of A-Case to me, one of the highlights at least, especially for as far as the new casting goes. But the deco is a little bit muted, I would say. It's not anything crazy, and I don't like how it kind of hides a few of the smaller details. And I think the casting itself is just a touch off, especially up front. It looks just a little bit different than the real-life car to a noticeable degree. And just overall, it seems just a little bit on the lazy side. However, you got to factor in the fact that it is just a mainline, so you kind of have to get what you can where the price point is. And with that factored in, I think it's still something you should definitely add to your collection, especially if you're a fan of Ford, or if you're a fan of just old school racing cars like that. And that's all I have for this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you are new, and leave a comment down below telling me what your thoughts are on this particular model, and I will see you in the next video.